Some things in life are just made for each other. Peanut butter and jelly, macaroni and cheese, Modelo and college football. College football season is Modelo season, and the season has officially kicked off. The Modelo Recruiter is back in action, looking to reward full-time fans who give their all for their team and their school week in and week out. If you're listening to this, you've been recruited. So lace them up and get out there. And don't forget to make time for a well-deserved ice-cold reward, because college football wouldn't be the same without you. So grab yourself a Modelo and enjoy the official beer sponsor of the College Football Playoff, Modelo.
What's up, Cal fans? Welcome back to another episode of California Golden Bearcast, a proud partner of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. We are post-big game emergency pod. I am alongside Rob as always, and we have some special guests today. They're not former football players, but they are the legends of the Calgorithm and the legends of the community that is California Golden Blogs, and of course right now Right for California. So we have the incredible Nam Lay, and then in the background we have Avi and Alex, who are going to be providing, from my understanding, color commentary on our commentary. So we get a plethora of perspectives today.
You get a podcast within a podcast.
This is the Inception. This is the Inception podcast. Okay, Rob.
Yes.
How do you feel? Let's reflect a little bit, because I do think that there were some folks on Right for California today in the comment section that were saying they actually took the time to reflect on what the Wilcox era was and what they were sort of grateful for, and then also like why they felt it was the right decision. So maybe we start there. How do you look at this era now that it's over? And is there anything about this era that you're particularly like positive about?
I think for me, the positivity comes from at least the consistency in how the program was presented and what the expectation was for the program. Results are different from the expectations, right? Like, I think Justin always had an expectation of success and building these guys up and being a good representative of the program and building up the athletics academic part within the athletics and all of that sort. And I think the maintenance of that has been solid throughout the 9 years, and it's been consistent in the 9 years. I think that definitely harkens to the type of person that Justin is, and that you and I have spoken on this a bunch of times, but like his coach speak isn't coach speak to give an excuse. Like, he truly believes the coach speak that he's giving you, and that's his true belief. So I think that's the first thing. And then the other thing I was looking back on his tenure with it was purely from a consistency standpoint, not the on-field play and all that, but how he upheld the program through probably three of the most turbulent college football like timeline events that have happened in the modern college football era, which was one, COVID, that just kind of derailed a lot of things, and the usual circadian rhythm of how athletics works in the cycle of recruiting and development and playing games and the off season. And then the NIL portal era, which totally, of course, upended all of college football to what it is now. And then the third was realignment. And we had a coach that stayed consistent with it through all three periods of those changes, and actually helped us set up an infrastructure that'll be beneficial for whoever comes in next after him. So that's one of the things I'm really grateful for his tenure here, that he took an unstable program situation under Sonny, because it was so erratic, and he was a guy that was always in the named and coaching cycle searches and all of that. But Wilcox, outside of the two times he was, tied to the Oregon job, like consistently was not in the news for any type of scandal story, of anything, and just maintained this willing like mind to just focus on the football and try to get results there. And that's the 9 years.
Yeah, I was reading Avi's article today, which was a really good one, reflecting back on a little bit more of the entire era. And when you think about where we were with Sonny Dykes, I just remember that press conference. I don't know what it is, Rob, but that one where he said we didn't have the athletes just never left my mind.
Yeah, because we talked about the defense and making tackles, and he said we don't have enough good athletes.
Did I ask that question?
You asked that question.
Ah, the old days. So, yeah, I mean, I think that Wilcox came in here, and for all of the Mike Williams hires, he's definitely the best, right? I don't think it's close. I don't think Mike Williams has the best track record. But like, it could have gone way worse for what the situation was, which is, Mike Williams decides we're not selling enough tickets, and we got tired of Sonny's like flirtatious eye towards other programs.
Yep.
And the fact he just didn't want to be here.
Yep.
And I think we had talked with Wilcox about coming in and being the DC, which is how we had the line of communication open. And then we ended up extending the offer. It could have gone way worse. And the first 3 years, we really established ourselves with an identity of sound football, great defense, and very, very mediocre offense. But what we also did is we continued the one good thread from the Sonny era, which was that if everyone remembers why Sandy made the decision to let go of Tedford, it wasn't due to the results on the field, although those were not great his last season, but it was due to the results in the classroom. And the difference that Sonny really instilled was like the players in the football team sat front row instead of back row. There was a bunch of differences in how we approached this concept of being a student athlete under Sonny that Wilcox extended and actually improved upon even further. So I think as far as representing the program and establishing a baseline, the Tim DeRuyter, Gerald Alexander years, those are the teams that I think you really look at and you're like, if we just had an offense, or even the 2019 season where Chase got hurt and that really could have been like a 9 or 10 win season. But Wilcox did a lot to bring some legitimacy to, and also like we talked about this, we didn't want to be a program that had a revolving door of head coaches. We wanted to show that we could be patient and help give people time to build an actual program. We were certainly patient. We were way too patient by some standards when you think about like in conference record and overall record and ultimately what the program has achieved in 9 seasons. But I'm super grateful. I think that when I was talking to people about it today, the reason why you get 9 seasons is because everyone wants to see this person succeed.
Yep.
Like no one wanted to see Wilcox fail. I haven't talked to a single person that was saying, oh yeah, I was actively rooting against him. I don't like him at all. No, I just think that he had a ton of people in the building and outside the building that were just massive, massive fans of the person that he is, the impact that he had on these young men that are committing to the University of California, Berkeley, and going on to represent Cal all over the world. So it's one of those things that I do hope there's a moment where we can kind of bring him back and say thanks the right way and look at it. It's not an era that I think will be, Hall of Fame Tedford worthy by any means, but I also don't think it's when you see people bringing up the Holmo comparison, I think that's really, really unfair. Despite, again, some serious shortcomings on in-conference record.
Yeah.
JW is just is somebody you want to root for. So I don't think that this was an easy decision for Ron Rivera. I think Ron Rivera also really likes Justin Wilcox. I think Rich Lyons really likes Justin Wilcox. I think a lot of the donors really like Justin Wilcox, and it's clear he never lost the locker room. I even thought about the game a little bit, reflecting on that, and was like, maybe it's just one of those things that we came out feeling like we had to win. We had to win. Our coach's job was on the line, and we pulled it off in Louisville. But then we just sort of showed up really tight, and Stanford played more loose. But who knows? There's another time and place to talk about that further.
Yeah, about the game. And I think the one retrospective thing that I definitely do want to talk about is this is a part of the the natural cycle of being a fan of a sports team for at any level, and it's that your expectations definitely change and they are raised every time you hit a consistent bar. And I think that's the kind of situation we had here where under Sonny we went to what, one bowl game in 4 years, and basically didn't get close to sniffing 6 or more wins outside that one Jared Goff year. And so Justin brought that consistency of staying within fighting distance of at least getting to a bowl game every year. And we did that. And then our benchmark kind of changed where we wanted him to build on it one more level. And it never happened. And that's not a fault of the fans raising their standard. I think equally you're within your rights to do that. And I think fans should, because you want to see the standard of excellence start to go higher and higher, right? And there are more goals you want to kind of achieve. But like he did set out to kind of do that and to kind of start that. And remember, Andy, like we had this conversation when we first hired him in the first couple of years, and you always talked about like wanting him to kind of build that identity of kind of what Utah did with the bowl games and the consistency of going to bowl games and getting those extra practices and all of that sort, and then building off of that. And that's kind of what he did. I feel like at least the last 4 or 5 years is he built kind of that rhythm of, well, we're going to stay consistent in getting the bowl games at the very least. And then, but he never took that next step within conference play and built upon that. And that's where the unfortunate circumstances, in the results come. But he did at least get us back to that mid line of being a consistent postseason team instead of this team that might be super boomer bust. And so like that's once again, that's one of the things we were talking about of being, kind of thankful and looking back at his 9 years here. And it's clear like that's kind of he raised that floor for us at the very least.
Or he certainly didn't create a lower one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Nam, we were kind of starting off with looking back, taking a little bit of a lens towards gratitude, if you will, but on the era of what Justin Wilcox was, even as you look at the first 4 years, what he took over from the previous regime from Sonny Dykes, and then ultimately where we were at today. But we would love your thoughts on this era, and doesn't have to be gratitude. That's just sort of where we went with it.
Yeah. First and foremost, I don't know if you guys caught what I said right after Andy, but once again, I want to impress before my internet cut out. I did not pay him to say any of that stuff. Thank you, Andy. It is, one, surreal to be here. We joked about it in the pre-show of like, dude, on a Sunday, like afternoon in 2017, we were in a very different phase of our lives doing the same pod. So I'm grateful for that, that we have been great friends through all of that time. But I think first and foremost with the Justin Wilcox era, I love what Rob said. Like we're at least steady, respectable. Like the bottom could have come out of this thing. And we have been slapped with a lot of different contextual obstacles that other programs don't face, from like the COVID stuff on down, bureaucratically on down. And I think obviously I echo all of those things too. The thing that I really like think about a lot, especially in the context of like last night and what we watched, and we're recording this on Sunday, the day that Justin Wilcox has been fired, is the fact that we won the big game regularly. And I know for you guys who are a little bit older than me, that was a normal thing that you guys came up like experiencing. But he was the first coach in my life, and I guess now having written about him for 9 years, and that's kind of surreal to see that come to an end. But winning the big game regularly, no matter what way that it came in, fluky, last minute, whatever, like our blood and guts and steel is tougher and wins out at the end of the day. Up until last night, that is something I'll never take for granted. Like You have to lose it every so often mathematically because you can't keep it forever, but winning regularly has given me some of the most fun that I've had in my life on an opposing field's 50-yard line.
Certainly
Yeah.
memorable. I mean, we have the pictures and the moments to prove it. I mean,
There was
pocket dog notwithstanding.
There's a lot of stuff, Rob, that I'm grateful pictures of me in very like honest but memeable situations and feelings that you have chosen not to release, and for that I am grateful, Rob.
Same with, I mean, Avi sitting right behind me, and I have very incriminating pictures of Avi as well. So we'll never see the light of day. But you'll never know. You'll never know, Avi. You'll never know. That's why it's why you have to. It's why we maintain a very fragile relationship.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, Nam, growing up as a Cal fan, I remember I've told Rob this, but I would ride home on the 51 bus because my dad would have us go to Cactus to eat the pregame meal and then take the 51 down to the game, and we'd go back with all the chummy Stanford fans. And I turned to him one time on the bus and say, "Dad, why do we always lose?" I mean, I grew up losing and losing the big game over and over and over again. And then Tedford was the first time where that changed for me. And I was like, oh, wow, Cal doesn't, we don't always have to be losing this game. And then at the end of that era, it changed for the longest period of time I can remember of being losses. So that's what made 2019. I mean, the seats last night, like being in that section, I was like, oh, this just feels, that's where Chase ran it in. I mean, it just brought back all that feel and emotion. And I think there was part of me last night too that felt like I had become accustomed to winning that game. And I had forgotten what it was like to hear that stupid train sound or whatever horn that they play, and hearing the roar from the Stanford section when things start to go their way. I mean, it had been a minute. Last year was nerve-wracking, but outside of a blocked extra point during the pandemic game, it was pretty close to being a 6-year streak. So that was not. It hasn't been a short period of time where we've looked at that game and we've said that's a winnable game. Now, has Stanford declined a lot during that time? Yes. And it's not so much of us meeting that moment as much as I feel like they became way more beatable.
We don't need to apologize for that. I will not apologize for the historical circumstance. Justin Wilcox won those games. Like, that's what the record's going to show. Nobody's looking at the calculus of this. Like, his tombstone will say that he won 4 big games. You know whose tombstone says he didn't win no big games? Sonny Dykes.
I mean, it's true. I mean, unless we get like some scandal with show cause and we have to vacate the wins. But for now,
knocking on wood.
Real hard.
Oh my gosh.
But I think it's for me we can talk about those types of Stanford wins like rationally, but also like just emotionally, like all rhyme and reason go out the door for any rivalry game. Like, everyone has to get up for the rivalry game. It doesn't matter what your record is at any point. Like, you're getting up to win that, and that's. This is for a later pod, but basically that for me, that's kind of what I saw Stanford do. Because now you're at a 4-game losing streak. A generation of these guys that have been there for 4 years have not seen them win the axe. Their season's pretty much done with only 3 wins. So this was their bowl game. This was their national championship, and they were going to try and win it one time before they exited college football. And that's kind of the energy that we saw from that sideline. And on the flip side, that's kind of what we were looking like when we won in 2019. And that's what we looked like last night on the sidelines, was what Stanford looked like in 2019. So like it's hard to rebuild that energy of like what this game means to specific groups of people if you're consistently winning. Now that if JKS stays beyond this season, he knows what that means. And like Shane, we talked to Shane last week, and Shane kind of talked about the same thing. He was at that big game in 2008, but he didn't realize what it meant until he had actually gone through and played that game. So if you're on the side of losing that game 4 years in a row, that built for 4 years, like exponentially. And so you're raving to go versus a team that, has more bigger pictures on their mind instead of just this singular game. And that's kind of where I feel like the difference was between the two teams last night. But overall, Justin made sure that these teams were ready to play in these games. And he talked about it in his presser just this past week of like the team meeting that he has before the big game is always the longest one. And it's the most fun for him because they're talking to guys about the traditions, the history, why this game means so much. And talking to former players and faculty and staff and fans and all of that. And he makes sure that these guys understand what this game is. But, for a lot of those times, it's like how you can't like fully think that the guys are going to absorb the type of energy you're trying to instill in them. And maybe that's where it was kind of lost. We had just won too many times that like these guys felt like we were just going to win it again. And they had kind of lost that edge of like this game is a lot more than just like a normal game.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's a little kind.
Yeah. I know.
It's one of those things also of like, we can. There was a lot of things contextual, and we want to separate obviously like that conversation, which I know you guys are going to get into later, from like what happened and kind of led to kind of this moment that we're like talking about right now. But if you look at it as like the symbolic things that we saw repeatedly that marked Justin Wilcox football, I wrote a few years ago, and for people who don't listen to me like here, I'm reaching a different audience that might not be on Twitter all the time. So just very quickly recapping, but like for me, my standpoint has always been, we know what kind of football this is. We're going to root, or at least a lot of fans are going to continue to root for this because we love college football and we understand we're doing this in good faith. But you could see kind of the trademarks of what made this like kind of play is like tough always, but tough also meant tough on us, right? Like it just, everything always had to be ugly, a struggle, victim of circumstance, very rarely creating your own circumstance, right? And you can see all of those things reflected into what would have been his last, what is his last game now. Omar Staples, like getting a fumble, right? Like by kicking a ball, like weird freak things that only seem to happen to us. Even when we do score and good things happen, that was like a 15-play drive. And even then, if you're going to think about the Justin Wilcox era in retrospect, a really easy way to sum it up is going to be like, it was hard. And sometimes like that struggle was really like wonderful and blossomed into something. But a lot of times it was us making it really hard on ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think this does transition well into sort of where I was going to take this, which might be more the critique side. But Rob, to what your point is and what Nam extended, I think is that teams could look at this Cal team throughout this tenure and say, this is like, to use Shane's quote that he had on last Friday, this is our opportunity to steal one. Colorado did that. Arizona did that. Stanford just did that. There's San Diego State did that. It was really easy for our opponents to look at us for whatever reason in this era and say, when we were playing down, they looked up and said, that's the game. Circled it and said, that's the one we're going to get. And Arizona did it, like, Colorado, when they were at the absolute low of that program, they circled it coming out of bye week and said, that's the one we're going to be able to get. And I think that's the hard part, is you look at so many of the mistakes. When I think of the Colorado game, I can't ever forget the fact that I can't remember which receiver, which is probably good, but he's wide open, and instead of going to meet the ball, he lets the ball come into his chest, and ultimately it's incomplete, right? And we lose the game. So I also will never understand, and I think this is a different point, but the thing that I was immensely frustrated with last night and it wasn't the outcome of the game. It wasn't, it wasn't just that we had lost, but I kept going back to this. The bye week should be your advantage. A time off, 1 week off should be your advantage. You get players back, you get healthy, and you get additional time to focus on one opponent. And I know we had a listener that actually did the math on this. I think it was 4-7 coming out of the bye week. And then I'm just like thinking about bowl games. If you look at the bowl games as like extended bye weeks, man, anytime we had extra time to plan for an opponent, it really felt like we got worse. And we came out worse. We came out sloppy. 13 penalties, the most in the entire Justin Wilcox era. That was really hard to watch last night from that perspective. And we know that man is a perfectionist in that area. So I know it drives him crazy. But I think for me, that's the most damning statistic. The non-conference, the conference record is really rough. But for me, it's just knowing that we could call this and say, this is a tougher game because we have more time to prepare for it. I just will never be able to make sense of that.
I got nothing to that.
I mean, not only that, it's just a lot of those things, right? And that's the surreal thing is like we had to give this longer. Again, normal pattern, right? Like normal coach cycle, normal program that is not hampered with the institutional things and whatever, right? We have to always acknowledge that this is impacting the reason why it kind of got along as it did. But like in most places he's fired at the end of 2022. There is no situation in which that warrants extension, whatever, at least to the kind of commitment that we made. And I think if there is anything that's positive, and nobody likes losing the axe. We have to mathematically, whatever. But if there's anything that's going to kind of come out of this, it is the understanding now of how seriously Cal has to take its position in the college football landscape. One, because we barely escaped relegation. And two, we have a very small window to try to rebuild value. And that's going to drive, I think, a lot of how Ron Rivera and Rich Lyons will be thinking about the next head football coaching guy. It's got to be somebody who can make something happen with a short amount of time. There's a lot of different ways to build a program, I think, in the portal NIL era, but I'm gonna guess that is at the very top of their list because it is important to get people excited about Cal football, to juice these metrics, to just become viable, because we got snubbed last time from the Big Ten despite being a major media market, because there's the perception that players, not players and teams, but fans don't care about college football out here. So I think about that Isaiah Thomas, we met the qualifications, but we weren't invited clip that he used about the Olympic team. And, I think if there is anything that comes out of that, it is a renewed seriousness. I wasn't expecting this to happen for a while, at least for another week, right? But
Yeah.
you get to divert a lot of the conversation about the big game and this, because everybody knows loud and clear this is unacceptable. And I think this was a point where you bought some goodwill after Louisville, and we got a last hurrah out of that. And I think if most people had a chance to kind of flip them, they would. But either way, getting resolution on this, decisive, to divert things is very, very good. I think that's important from Ron. I know a lot of us were worried about, if he stuck with this and he hadn't given any indication, but a good sign, I think, in the way that we should evaluate his decision making.
I think I have a hotter take to build on that, which is I had that conversation with a couple of Cal fans today around, well, does this mean that, JKS, that Jaren's out the door? And I was like, it could. I don't think that this is the thing that makes it happen. But the thing that I said in that moment, and this is why I think it's a hot take, but I said Jaren is without a doubt, the best freshman quarterback I've seen. I think the world of him. But for me, this decision is bigger than any single player. And quarterbacks come and go, and single players come and go, just as Fernando has moved on and is now the front runner for the Heisman, right? There's nothing I can control about that. But we needed to be able to make a decision proactively and say, this is unequivocally unacceptable, and that, this isn't talk about 8-9 wins. That when Rich Lyons says 8-9 wins, and when Ron Rivera says 8-9 wins, that we're willing to make a decision. And I've been talking with Rob about this. It's like, because we've been going and debating, hey, in season versus after, and talking about the financial impacts. And I was like, I want that decision. I wanted this decision after the UNC game.
Not possible because we won, right? But I get it, right? Like there's a lot of people. Yeah, sorry, I got excited. Go ahead.
No, that's exactly right. Because I wanted to it was exactly what you said, Nam. It's like, I wanted to know that our program was taking this as seriously as we all have for the last 10 years. And we haven't always felt that from the administration back, that they're committed to this and that they care. And I think that had we lost this game in more of a, Virginia game way, and I was explaining this to Carl, like, we win this game and then we lose SMU, then what do you do? I mean, like, the situation could have been immensely more complex.
Yeah, you still should have arrived at this calculus regardless, right? Unless you win everything on the way out. And even then how you win matters. Again, there was a little bit of worry, I think, on my side of like, how is Ron looking at this? Because he didn't live through the 9 years in the way that you and I have, like, week to week, or fans have week to week. He's coming at this of like, do I see the potential to be like, it's a good thing in the way that he evaluates it. And I think we all agreed unequivocally that there was nothing to project going forward anymore, even if you wanted to. So that's one. But two, I agree with you. And this is not because it's like Jaron is going to go 1-1, whatever. Like, we understand that. Very obvious to me, like, is on the arc of being by far the most talented quarterback to like step through here. That's just how I feel about it. And I know what I'm seeing, because we will now have potentially claim to 2 quarterbacks who went 1-1. And the third one, check his jersey number. Do that math, guys. Do you see the side? Do you see what we're cooking up right here, guys? Like, the reality is we can't. This is bigger than Jaron. This is the future of Cal football. And if he transferred for any reason, obviously we want him to stay. Ron has been obviously upfront about that, feels good about it. From everything that I think anybody has heard, like, we feel like we have a shot, but nobody would be mad. I think everybody would understand, like, what would happen. And it like, the program's future cannot be held hostage like this. Like, if you bring back Justin Wilcox next year, you're going to have people, and including that extremely online segment of people I happen to overlap with, not like you won't even have us being good soldiers about it. Like, Sonny Dykes got let go on a random Sunday in January because only 33% of people were renewing season tickets. Might be even less than that, but it was something absurdly low, right? Like, you're going to start getting a dip like that because even at home, we did okay. You didn't win those games that you were supposed to win in the ways that you were supposed to win them, and quite frankly, fans bought in and did more than their fair share, and it's unfortunate. Like, because we wanted this to work, and I think up until the very, very end, when it couldn't be justified anymore, we wanted this to work.
And that Stanford Stadium was, what, 45%, 50% Cal fans? I mean, it was maybe more, maybe 60. I looked at that crowd and was like, this is as big of a Cal crowd that there's maybe one other year that I can think of that we've had that many Cal fans in that stadium. But it was a massive representation. And I think I'm sure that also weighed heavily on Ron, which is like, this was a lot of eyes. This was a lot of eyeballs. And for us to come out and play that way in that brand of
Yeah.
football.
You guys saw, like, I guess people at home on the broadcast did get to see that Ron was quite close to Justin for a lot of that game or around, and obviously he's witnessing it from right there. Uh, the optics were just not good, and losing even by a little bit would have been one thing. Losing in the way that you lost, that you guys will be talking about later, is definitely played, I think, a larger factor in it.
So I want to step back, Rob. Like, what do you? I'd love to, Nam. You kind of touched on this as well. I don't want to say too much of what I thought around like where, but you did lay out some guideline for where you think Lions and Ron might be, or what they might be looking for in a head coaching candidate. Rob, let's maybe transition over to you. What do you think they're looking for? And is it too early to ask you if there's anyone that you think meets those qualifications?
Yeah, the toughest part about this is, and we have to set some realistic expectations, right? Of like who we can get financially, what's available. If said coach is willing to take our financial package and the resources we are allocating to them to be able to use, whether that be in NIL, recruiting, the facilities, any upgrades that might be coming down the pipeline, assistant coach pool, all that stuff is all inclusive, right? That's a negotiation that has to happen between Ron / athletic department and that head coach.
Are you saying that we're not getting Nick Saban?
Hey, who knows? If Miss Terry really likes the Bay Area and the weather out here, who knows? Who knows? We don't know. I think that one of the conversations we had in the car ride back home last night with Avi and Peter and Thomas was like, everyone's kind of under this, at least on the internet wise, is under this guise of why would JKS like stay here if Wilcox was the head coach? Well, there's also no guarantees that he'll stay here if he's not the head coach, right? Like we have to understand that there's that realistic possibility of, regardless of who we hire, that coach isn't able to convince JKS to stay. Despite his press conferences saying that he wants to be here and all that. What if the new coach that comes in is just like, I don't think JKS is the right quarterback for my system that I want to run here. Like he doesn't have that skill set that I have, and like you can,
If
JKS
that happens, we hired the wrong coach.
but that's exactly what we're talking about. Is like, you can't have one guy, you can't direct like the coaching hire to one guy that'll fit that guy's needs. Or like,
especially
from
because
a
that
football
guy could
standpoint.
transfer at any time. It's not
At
like
any
that
time now.
guy.
Yeah.
That guy is not locked in for a period of time, right?
It's
Like in the
not.
pros, you could be like, okay, we have some parameters. These guys are on contracts, and we cannot move off of this, right? Jaron is a wonderful, like, yes, very clear and obvious, but the future of Cal football can't be built around this. The present of Cal football can.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like what we can see in the immediate fingers crossed, 2-3 years of eligibility potentially, right, is not the same thing as we need to do something that keeps this program chugging along with the potential to stave off relegation in the next line of realignment. Those are not the same outcome, and those are not the same timeline. Ideally, they are, but one cannot be the one that influences the other.
Yeah, and I think the question in my mind that's spurring from this conversation right now is like, so when you're looking at a head coach to hire now, are you going for a mercenary hire, kind of, quote unquote, a mercenary hire to max out JKS in the next 2-3 years and he moves on somewhere else and has brought our program, let's say, up to the perennial 8-9 win team with JKS, and then we're building off of that to go into that next stage? Or are you getting more of a program builder that'll be here, let's say, 5 to 7 years, hopefully, and builds out a program that sustains that, but might not give us immediate success with or without JKS, because that's the type of head coach he is the longer term type of project. And so that's a big debate that we're going to have to, not only just us, but Ron, and them are going to have to figure out, like, are you going to overpay for a guy to get us back into relevance real quickly? Although he might have, the character flaw of having a wandering eye like Sonny and looking for that next stepping stone. Or like, are we going to get maybe a guy who's a little bit more dedicated and can see us through the longer term? And I don't know what that expectation is, or what direction we're looking, or if we're looking at both candidates and types of candidates and weighing, the pros and cons of each. But it is something that we have to consider, because that is a possibility particularly within this coaching carousel cycle.
It is, and it isn't to me. So like my perspective on this one is actually really easy, which is nice, which is that you can't hire the coach that would take the traditional 3-year path of the first year of, like, let's say the Sunny 1-11,
We
and
better
then the
not.
5-7.
We
Like,
better not.
you
I don't
can't.
think I don't think you can hire a
You
coach
can't.
that bottoms out like
Yeah.
that.
But like, even still, Rob, if we can't afford to go 4-8, 5-7, like, it's the pressure. I think what Nam said perfectly earlier is you have to go up and to the right here. The time horizon that we're looking at is 2 to 3 years, and you're not looking at 2 to 3 years where we're peaking at our peak in the 3rd year. You're looking at being relevant over the course of 3 years enough. And I said this last night, to stay within the top 60 football teams in the country. That's realistically where I think we have to be at, top 64 teams. Because if you're outside, and that's where we've been that's where we're flirting with. We're like, we're like 60 to 80. We're like in that range as you're like rolling through there. And I think you have to be 40, like you have to be comfortably 40 to 60. And that's, I don't think we're setting too high of a bar, but I do think that does narrow down your candidate pool, to your point. And I think that's like an excellent piece to bring up, because that's part of the equation. But to me, it's crystal clear that you have to, it leads me to think that you have a 1A in sort of like Tosh, because of everything that Tosh represents to Cal. But then I think 1B, C, and D, and you're going to hate me for this, are probably lending itself more towards retread than not. Somebody or someone that has actually done it. And
Does makes sense.
Well, but
it's like less risky, right? Like less risk of, this completely bottoming out. And not everyone's going to love that. Rob, I love a retread hire, but not everyone.
Well, I mean,
everyone loves a retread hire.
The standard of a retread hire is also different too. Like, there's 2 types of retread hires, right? Like, there's the Carl Durrell type of retread hires, which is you're like, that's what are you doing type of retread. And then there's retread hires when you're looking at what's happening, like you're looking at the recency of what they're doing in college football right now, and you're going, like, you're looking at, let's say, like, Rico brought him up today when I was talking to him, like a Dan Mullen in UNLV, and saying, like, that's quote unquote a retread hire, right? But you're seeing you're seeing what he's doing there, and you're saying, okay, maybe he does that, and you kind of X out what he did at Florida, and you're looking at that type of retread hire. So I think if it's a Carl Durrell type of retread hire, that's where I'm saying, like, absolutely not. But, like, I think if you're looking and you actually look and calculate and see what were the circumstances for his failures at his past place, but what is he doing now is different. Like, I don't want to hire a retread coach that's like a fired Justin Wilcox, right? Like, just coming off of that and then bringing him in right away to try and build the program. But a few years ago, he is like, all that stuff, and there's time passed and all that. Like, that's a totally different type of story for me. So, like, who knows? Maybe in like a few years' time, like Billy Napier's like a really good coach again, and he gets hired by another SEC school and he succeeds there, didn't succeed at Florida. That's an okay retread hire. Like, that's fine. But like, it's the circumstances of this particular coaching hire, and Nam loves the word EV. Like, as Andy said, like, we're in that 60 to 80. What is the delta to get plus EV to move up in one tier? Because every time you go up in a tier, as you get higher up, the EVs get smaller and smaller, and the amount of change you can institute to be able to get into that next tier gets shorter and shorter and shorter. And so even being at the 60 to 80 range is a pretty great feat, to knowing how many college football teams there are. But to get into that next tier, it's like it's beyond the coaching too. Like, it's financial, like, backing. It's you're seeing what Virginia Tech is offering James Franklin, and you see his assistant pool at 15 mil, which is 3 times what we're giving all our assistants together right now. You see LSU's purported offer to Lane Kiffin at 90 million with 25 million in NIL money. Apparently that's beyond the house settlement money. So that's about, I don't know, I want to average like 40 million in NIL money that Lane Kiffin's able to use. They're playing on another level that we are. And I'm not saying we're trying to get to that level right now, but if we're going to inch closer to that level every single season, like that has to increase too. Like it's not merely just about whoever we hire as a coach. And so all of that has to factor into, are we going to give him enough backing to push us into that tier of perennial powerhouse?
No. What Rob said, totally. I love the point of like, hey, as you move up in tier, like it is exponentially more difficult to get to the next tier. So with us breaking in right now, it's funny. You and I did some of the back of the envelope math, and we were like, how will we know that we're serious? We're probably, I don't know. I wasn't even thinking we could get to 10 mil in the coordinator pool alone, right? Like this is a huge financial endeavor by all parties involved. If we got 10, I'd be ecstatic. But
We're in a
I
great
think
place
it
if we
does.
get 10.
We are a great place. Like that's a great amount of excitement and investment. Um, because there are levels, and that doesn't mean, what is easier with Cal is like there are potential pools of acceleration. Like if you can hit kind of the first checkpoint of proving that there will be a consistently competitive product that is exciting and has the intention of engaging everybody because there is like the resources here, you will start being able to reel in more money like much more quickly. So that whole thing of like, yes, it was a long time ago, but those guys didn't stop loving football. They just stopped having a reason to. Those people that came for Tedford, that donated and that, helped get the new facilities together, obviously too late. It's just like these things that are unique to Berkeley as an institution, to Cal as an athletic institution. You have spent the last 12 to 16 months like trying to pave the way on something that could be built here. And I think, yes, Tosh is my first choice just because you have some unique attributes that make him a better fit here than most. And you have probably the candidate with the best chance of obviously they'll all work hard, right? But you put your name on at your alma mater is a special is a special kind of pressure and a special kind of privilege, Do I think that Kenny Dillingham ever felt like any special type? Yeah, of course, dude. Like you're going to give everything you have to making this succeed because you were a part of this thing. And that will give you a better chance than most of building sustainability if you can clear the first couple of hurdles.
I mean, one thing I was talking to Rico about too earlier, and he made a great point, was he said something to the extent of like, do we really want to go with another rookie head coach again? And I hadn't thought about that in a while, but he does make a good point. Like you do have much like starting a true freshman quarterback, you're going to have growing pains with a first-time head coach. And we went through that with Justin. And do we want that type of, as Andy said, like if the timeline is 2 to 3 years, that means we're going to have to live with those growing pains too. And if we're all agreeing on just for the sake of the argument, if we're all agreeing on a 2-3 year timeline, does it make sense to bring in another head coach that's learning the job on the fly as well? It probably makes more sense to bring in a guy who's been a head coach and knows what it takes to do that part, regardless of the types of head coaches he worked under. But like,
so I'm hearing OC Chip Kelly.
Hearing
I
Cal
think
head
that
coach David Shaw.
The thing is, Rob, with that, it is like you do have Ron Rivera in the building and the role of general manager, and right.
See, but like we said that, but
I always,
like Yeah, but my pushback to that is like we kind of said that with Justin Wilcox, and we also said that when we brought in the co-defensive coordinator stuff. I don't necessarily think that really like pushed that or helped it. I mean, we don't know. We're not in those rooms, but like it doesn't seem like it got better by any means. Um so I am curious to see like how that pans out, but it is something that I was
Definitely
thinking about
doesn't
like
seem
yeah.
like it helped.
So, yeah, yeah,
I
I mean, yeah,
mean,
who knows? Who
I think
knows?
another thing to consider in all of this is like, even if we have a first time head coach here, like I think at the end of the day, we are all just trying to figure out what gives us the best chance of return. You can have some guardrails in place, but even with Ron, and Andrew Luck, like their jobs. I read an article on The Athletic recently, right? Like that kind of detailed, like, okay, what does Barton Simmons' job at Vanderbilt look like? And his stuff is most about roster construction, right? Like he comes from the scouting world, and that is his kind of talent ID and figuring out where can we get value at a place that is difficult. Um, Ron's energies ultimately, first of all, that guy's like everywhere all the time. And we talked to him on the Glade, and obviously part of this is like keeping us visible. But his time is finite. And you really want him focusing on certain aspects with a guy that he brought in that's his, whose vision is like in pursuit of his. And I've been thinking about this a lot in terms of like even the Oski Village stuff. Like, you have to see what he's trying to build, what we think Cal football can become, can be, needs to be, and what we have to do as a community to follow in that vision have to be in alignment. And I don't know if the best use of that energy and pushing that forward is going to be like worrying about whether the guy that I empowered to do this like can, right? Like is micromanaging a first time head coach in the college landscape where you see teams have struggled when they have NFL guys only like looking downwards, right?
Mhm.
College is its own special thing. It's like I think when you think about the UNC thing of how many leaks have come out of their operation, and some of the challenges that that program has had this year integrating Bill Belichick, right? A guy who has all of the signifiers that you would want. I I think the best way to just kind of do this is like, hey, allow things to move quickly and decisively, and if we're figuring it out as we go, we can still be responsive to that. And we kind of even see that in the way that they take feedback and how the athletic department and voices have been soliciting like feedback and listening. When fans are saying right now the stadium music is too loud, the state like they have noticeably cut those errors, right? They are working on things. Not everything's going to work. The Black Bears thing, I think, is an example of like, hey, we're still trying to grow this stuff out, but we're trying some stuff, and we're on the ground floor right now of like Ron remaking the program and dragging it to places that it needs to be, and infusing the thing with energy. But when it comes to a first time head coach, it is what it is. Like, we're in a spot where we have to pick what gives us the best chance of survival. And anybody who doesn't offer me anything more than the potential to be stable, I'm not really interested in as a solution to this. We because if this fails on Ron's watch, it's all, like, he understands. So I'm not scared by that prospect. That's me personally. The
And
guys are
you're saying,
nodding.
Nam,
Just
I just want to confirm you're saying you're not scared by the prospect of a first time head coach.
No, I am not. But
Yeah,
I
I
also assume that
agree.
that first time head coach is. I am operating under the assumption as of right now that that's who we will hire and that's what's shaping it. But if it is a first time head coach, I'm assuming it would be in that like hot coordinator, Ryan Grubb, Will Stein.
Yeah.
Like, we will look for somebody with West Coast ties who recruits well, who's come out of these institutions that we would like to join in the next few years. But in any case, that offers something that's a lot more exciting to me than like Pat Fitzgerald.
Yes.
And we said before the show, if we hire Pat Fitzgerald, I will not be allowed in the stadium before the season opener. Like,
Do you think he still like has like our names and stuff from like that game like on his wall of like why he lost at Northwestern?
that would be so funny to me because the way that I think about this is the Cal bloggers all split win shares on this. If you were around to do the practice reports, you get credit for part of a college football victory. Doesn't matter how much, right? Like, obviously it's not zero. We have win shares in our record, guys.
It's true. It's true.
It's true.
It's
I don't.
stupid
Nam,
that it's true. Do you know how bad the optics would be if we hired Pat Fitzgerald, who lost to the bloggers of the school that he's coaching?
Nam,
I promise you. Yeah.
I don't even know. I like that you think that you're getting in the building in general.
No. I didn't mean that. I didn't. No, that's what I mean. Like, to be a fan in the stands, he would be like, if you see this guy in section QQ, remove him immediately.
Yeah, exactly. I think you'd be printed out on the sheet.
Yeah,
Do
exactly.
not let him
Oh,
in.
yeah. Like, I'm not making it past security, right?
No.
Like, because the PR campaign, like, that's what I'm saying. The retread thing has to offer upside. If you are guaranteed to make sure that we make 6, like, what is the point of that? We would have just kept Justin Wilcox again. Like, we have to give something. If we're going to roll the dice, like, what is the smartest bet that we can make with the maximum amount of outcome?
Yeah, I totally agree. We need. You're setting the expectation. Then they've been very clear, like 8 or 9 wins. I like the call out around like Oski's Village and also the vision, and you can see what Ron is invested in doing, which is like taking advantage of the fact that these teams have left the East Bay Area and the Bay Area in general. And there's such an opportunity for Cal to step into that. I think he's pretty frustrated that we haven't been able to do it. And it seems like every time we would get the right audience in the stadium, we would just have one of those moments of, you know, blowing a 25-point lead or just getting boat raced in the second half by Duke. And it's just been frustrating. So you need somebody that can break that proverbial glass ceiling and push through it. I don't envy the decision. It does feel like it is one of those hires that will have the most weight of any hire we have made. And in the past, we just had this. And I ultimately think, like we've talked about this, Rob, it's like the other conferences, Wisconsin can sit with Luke Fickell, no problem, and chill.
Yep.
Florida State, they're like, we can sit and chill with Norvell. It's not no problem, but we can make it. Michigan State.
Next year they'll probably be at the top of the board because they'll like, we'll just be the biggest school of the next cycle then. Like,
Yeah,
who's
exactly.
probably getting fired next year? Like, we'll still be at the top there. It's not as urgent.
It's just totally different. But one of the things I want to revisit, Rob, was something that you said, this idea of somebody that you hire that might be a hot prospect but has wandering eye, the sunny wandering eye. We talked about that a lot. But the thing I want to look at is like with Indiana specifically. I don't necessarily think prior to the new regime coming into town, you would have said that you would expect Indiana to rally their donor base to support a 10-plus year, $90 million contract. Like, could you have possibly seen that? I don't think I could have, especially because when I was in Chicago, like understanding that Indiana, the laughing stock of the Big Ten, like, because so many Indiana alums are in Chicago. I mean, that football program was so bad. I just don't. So what I want us to be prepared for when we think about the financial investment is not only being able to be competitive from the coordinator side, the NIL side, but I also think we have to start to have the conversation of, to Nam's point, if there is this positive momentum that starts to come from this, if we do break through that glass ceiling early, bringing the same group of people to the table and saying, we need to have 30 million ready. We need to be willing. It's not like we have to deploy it right away, but we need to be able to come out and say, hey, if we find someone that can actually push through this and we want to lock them in long term, and we know that ultimately their agent's going to do their agent's job, I would love to see us be very prepared to meet that moment, because what we've seen this cycle is, I think, a lot more coaches staying than we've seen previously. You look at the class of the jobs that have been available, and I think a lot of people said if Florida, LSU, and Penn State became available, you would have coaches all over putting their hand up saying, yeah, I want to go to that. And a lot have stayed put and signed, like including at SMU, right?
Elko.
Including at Indiana, A&M.
Well,
Like,
Elko's he's also in the top. He's in a place that's in the top 10. So like he doesn't really need to move up anywhere. And I mean, TAMU has endless amounts of cash.
yes, they do. But yeah, so I think that like it's not so much we don't have to be a stepping stone program if we don't want to be. And I think the thing that was interesting about Virginia Tech, I can't remember where I saw this. Rob, maybe you sent it to me, was that there was a post from Virginia Tech where someone was talking about the coffers that we have in Berkeley and the access to Silicon Valley with both Stanford and Cal, that they were actually like nervous that they had to step up because of where we were at. They were trying to meet us more so than us actually trying to meet them. And I thought that that was a very interesting difference in mentality from the way we view ourselves to the way that we are viewed externally. And it makes sense. It's like AI is the one place right now, in Silicon Valley is the one place right now where everything is up and to the right. And the rest of the world is, the rest of the economy and this, it's all over the place. So there is that association of like, oh, wow, like these Stanford and Cal, they're so close to this thing that's taking off. And I think that creates opportunity for us. And if there is this wealth creation that is actually happening amongst Cal alumni, it is this hire that can galvanize all of those people to come back and say, this is something I should care about. This is something that I want my kids going to. Last night at the game, there was a section to our right that had like 13 kids all wearing bear hats. It was the coolest thing of all time. I was like, I can't wait to have Eva be able to participate in something like that. I can't wait for all, like, should this group decide to have kids one day, all of us to have 13 mini bear hats, replicating what Avi has set as a tradition in a row at the big game. Like, that's a fundamentally amazing thing. And I hope we're ready to meet the moment now, because I don't know if that situation, we got lucky that Wilcox wanted to stay, even though, again, that's a whole different conversation. But in that moment, were we ready to meet the moment when someone came, like in Oregon, to poach our coach? I don't think we were. I think we got lucky. They actually decided to choose Cal, and then was that lucky or not? Whatever. But as this goes forward, I don't want us to take the mentality of us being a stepping stone program. I don't think we have to be. I don't think Indiana is going to be anymore. And relevancy will play a huge role into that.
100%. And if you even think about like the historical circumstances of like where people would trace this lineage to suddenly splintering, was like we failed to provide Jeff Tedford with the resources that he needed quickly enough, and then could not show up or whatever when we needed to retain Tosh, and then the spiraling that happens from that. You can argue that Justin Wilcox, for most of his tenure, was also like treated institutionally like with very limited resources, which explains a lot of the decision making, right? Which was always like value based decision making. What happens when we actually have a level playing field or intention? And I think that what you suggested about like we don't have to be a stepping stone, like this is the first, well, maybe not the first, again, like since Ron came in, right? Like a series of events that has indicated that we are starting to take things seriously. You have a chronically online fan base that is starting to whip up PR on behalf of us as a known commodity. And that's like a couple hundred online, extremely online, but very talented and motivated people. If they knew how many people there are actually on the algorithm, I like to say that we are the most powerful shit posters per capita. And that's because all of us have access to skills where other institutions that, allow us to organize quickly. That's a strength of the algorithm, just as much as anything. So we don't have to be a stepping stone job. I 100% agree with you. But this is another good like evaluation indicator that we are moving in the direction of that.
Who's this boy? Oh, God. Oh, good God. Well, the people who are listening at home, there's two friends behind me, Alex and Avi, and Alex here decided to ask ChatGPT who is the best hire for California head coach, California football head coach. Please give me percentages. Would you
Nice.
like to know the results?
Yeah.
Top candidates based on recent reporting. Here are a few of the top names and how likely I think they are to be the pick. Percentage are my own model, not insider info. Tosh Lupoy, 25%. Jim Mora, 20%. Sean Lewis, 18%. Brian Harston, 15%. Pat Fitzgerald, 10%. Ed Orgeron, 6%. And Steve Wilkes, 6%.
Steve Wilkes.
I don't know where Steve Wilkes came from, but
That's amazing.
I don't know.
Bears by go Bears or Bears go, depending on how you read his name. Asked me about Ed Orgeron because if you guys know him on the Calgorithm, he's one of the Cal LSU like overlap fans, and asked about Ed Orgeron as a candidate, particular. Like, is Ed Orgeron a good enough coach for Cal? Yes, but the particularity of our job and culture means it's a no. Like, obviously we would take him, but like Cal is a particular job with very particular circumstances. We've heard this story passed around apocryphally that I think we can now share about Sonny and his in his transition over to Berkeley. Like, it's the Pigskins and Pearls story. Like, they held like a camp. It was retold to me, but essentially like there's a particular like cultural understanding and sensitivity and that sometimes feels antithetical to football or whatever is that's in the fan base, but it has a particular cultural job, and that's why I'm against Orgeron, even though a lot of good things could come from that. Jim Mora, respect what he's doing at UConn, but I don't know if he even wants to come back to the West Coast. Like, you got
Well,
a
it's
good
also an
thing
age
going.
thing too, right? It's like,
Yeah.
where is
Yeah,
he
how
in his
old is
career?
Jim?
Does he want to go back to like Power 4 football, which is also a consideration you need to make in all this, because at this point with our program, like, we want someone who's younger and a bit more energized, which is kind of why we went after Wilcox, in the first place.
Also, I actually was also technically a retread hire that we're like okay with, because if you go back through the history, when he was the DC at USC, people were like, no, do not hire this guy, because we had the Sonny conversation a year before that too, because
Yeah.
he was always looking around. Goes to Wisconsin, puts a solid year or two together, whatever it is, but rebuilt his stock that way. And then people are like okay with it again. So I think the circumstances of the decision in this moment, we are ultimately looking for who gives us the best shot to stay alive. And that means raising our station.
The funniest part about all this is Alex, of course, asked ChatGPT again and says, who is the worst potential fits by percentage? So the higher the percentage means, the more likely he is to struggle at Cal. At the top of the list, Ed Orgeron at 42%. Followed by Pat Fitzgerald at 34%, followed by Brian Harston at 27%, Steve Wilkes at 22%, Jim Moore at 18%, Sean Lewis at 12%, and Tosh Lupoy at 10%. So essentially the same list, but backwards.
But backwards. Chat. This is what is fueling billions and billions of dollars of speculation right now, guys.
And boiling off tons and tons of water in some server room that we don't know where of. But
so thanks a lot, Alex.
I love the Steve Wilkes. Steve Wilkes. I'm kind of sad it was the same list. I was hoping that Steve Wilkes was just mentioned ironically on both. I hate to say it, but yeah, Jim Mora, unfortunately, Nam, I think that's one that will actually probably be a serious candidate. That sounds right.
I feel, we can start to talk about some potentials of guys we want and, where the list goes. We've been talking for like an hour-ish. So, like, heading into...
Like maybe less than an hour given like web
true. Yeah, our technical difficulties. yeah.
Less than an hour.
But I guess we can kind of give like, a little bit of a tier list of who we want. I think the fun like question that I've had with some of the staff writers over the last few weeks, just after every like bad loss, was like, we know who maybe our top 2 or 3 choices are, but who becomes our 4th and 5th when 1, 2, 3 say no? and that's like that's
or get
where we
hired
know,
or get hired elsewhere,
huh?
or get hired elsewhere.
Yeah. So like it's a good thought experiment to have to see how deep we can go into like our coaching candidates and our viable coaching candidates and see where we are. I'm not saying we need to do that right now. But when we start talking about tiers of guys, it'll be interesting to see like who we start to list as like a tier 4 or a tier 5 guy that is inching closer to the bottom of the barrel / breaking case of emergency type hires. Because that'll be basically the floor of how much risk we're taking on as a program if we don't get guys that are high on our priority list. And of course, this is our priority list, not
Ron
the people
Rivera's
that are actually
priority.
making the decisions as priority list. But I think all three of us can agree tier 1 Tosh is cemented easily in tier 1. Is there any other names you would want to throw out into a tier 1 list?
I have Stein, and that's mostly like I'm looking at the mold more than anything. I'm not super picky about it. Obviously, like getting an offense first coach has its own appeal, but again, that's like separate. You can't guarantee Jaron is going to stay in any circumstance, but somebody who's exciting. And it's not because I'm going back to the it worked for Jeff Tedford type of a thing. It's just what profiles make the most sense, and we would always probably be looking at that type of coach regardless. But to answer your question as far as like all the way down after that, I usually wait for you guys to do the research because, like, I'll read right for California and talk with you guys. And then I'm like, okay, I'll dig after you guys have done the initial pool. So I rely a lot on your genius on this. But as far as like guy who I would take down after, but love to have also because he fits the particular culture needs is Nick Rolovich, interim head coach Nick Rolovich. Not only because he's from around here, but has like expressed a lot of understanding for and approval for the way the Cal fan base goes about things. I think it's good for optics. I think it's good for his engagement. Obviously, he couldn't shitpost as much about the Bridge Toll Mafia like if he was promoted to head coach, but a guy I would be happy to, and I think maybe in some cases like got a raw deal. If you look at his like history, built the Hawaii program to a great place, took the next step up to Washington State, and then obviously like with how that happened, and he'd probably have to answer for it in the PR and whatever once he stepped out of being an analyst, but understanding that didn't quite get a chance to build that job out, but I feel pretty good about where that might go. But that'd be like everything else is question marks in between those guys, and I'll start reading up the longer this goes if it takes a longer time to develop.
Yeah, I was absolutely stoked. That was where I wanted us to go a few weeks ago, was just seeing what Rolovich would look like, what the team would look like with him in charge. I think that's a great call out. I definitely don't want anything to do with Harsin. That's all I'll say right now. But I think that like Rolovich is one that I'm really interested in. I think he's a program builder. We've seen it work. There was some things that we saw at Washington State that give you reason to believe that he could make it happen here at Cal. And I was deeply searching, Rob, for the infamous Andy's list of retread hires that I texted you every so often.
It's been a ways back.
So
I legit screamed in my head when I saw this list. I was like, what depths of hell did you go, and like which like
whoa
fairy like in Hades did you pay to get the list?
Okay. All right. Well, first of all, let me say this was before I did enough reading to understand that Brian Kelly is actually just hated by his players and seems like a terrible person. But number one on my list, some guy that you guys have probably never heard of, actually, former Alabama head coach Nick Saban, number one on Andy's retread hires. Then it was James Franklin, now the head coach of Virginia Tech. Then it was Brian Kelly, and then Rob knows this, my personal favorite, who's still employed by Michigan State, Jonathan Smith, because I loved those Oregon State teams so much.
I'm with you though. don't know what happened in Michigan State, but the Oregon State like core that he had, like
Nam,
I
I
don't
think
hate that
you're
quite
the
as much.
reason why I love Jonathan Smith so
I
much
hate the both
because
of
of
you right
your
now.
adoration for like. I just remember it seared into my mind. It was like I wanted to hire his offensive coordinator. Like I just was like,
Brian Lindgren, baby.
yes. I was so ready. So, anyways, I love that Nam's on the vision. Rob, this is the vision.
No, okay. So here's my rebuttal to that I'll give. All right. This isn't like what's a good example of this? This isn't like Nick Saban being like rehired in an SEC school after leaving LSU and failing at it with the Dolphins. I know it's not like for like, but failing with the Dolphins and then going to Alabama and rebuilding. This is more of the Bill Belichick train. And I think what I'm saying is you need to take both into account because they're consecutive. Like it's like the Bill Belichick theory of like we have the Tom Brady years, but when UNC is hiring them, you can't just only look at the Tom Brady years because he had the years afterwards with Mac Jones and all those other players that he took. So you're getting that Bill Belichick. You're not getting Tom Brady Bill Belichick. You're getting what he is for right now and what his name value is in terms of recruiting, in terms of coaching, and the pools he can dip into. So like if we're getting Jonathan Smith from Oregon State before he moved to Michigan State, great hire. But if we're getting him now straight from Michigan State into here, that becomes the retread hire that's like not good.
Yep.
Not good at all.
But there was a time, and I
There was a
assume
time.
that Andy was saying
I absolutely agree. There was a time. I think I was on board with the Jonathan Smith hire at some point. And also, I mean, Brian Lindgren, of course, was one of the OC like candidates we would put on the board.
Yep.
But like that's what I'm saying right now is that's why it's like I don't want him on that board is because we have to take him in his entirety because there hasn't been enough of a gap between his time. Like Dan Mullen is a different case right now because of the gap in time between his Florida time
back up.
and his time at UNLV. We're taking his UNLV time now and with the gap to his previous Florida time. So that's my reasoning for why I really don't want Jonathan Smith, and also not gettable at the current.
He is still employed.
Yeah, he's still employed.
Another one that a retread hire that would be interesting would be Gus Malzahn, right? Because isn't USF looking solid this year?
Is it USF or UCF? Is it?
I'm sorry, UCF. Yes,
because Golesh is at USF, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Do we want to go back to another Auburn coach? We've kind of done that slightly with an offensive coordinator.
I mean, yeah, certainly don't want to necessarily revisit it again, but yeah, I agree with Nam. I distinctly, rely on you guys to put together these lists,
which is being made, which is currently being written right now.
I heard you guys had it.
We have a Google sheet of candidates. We need to formulate the Google sheet into a document that's presentable and readable to people. Avi's sitting right behind me and he just mumbles Mike Singletary. Ron Rivera's best friend.
He's drunk. Just don't even worry about it right now. He'll be lucid in the morning.
If we're gonna go that route, like just throw out stupid names like Tom Sula.
I'm just disappointed that Avi's phone is in his hand and not
in the
toilet of a porta potty somewhere.
Yeah.
All right. I think we've reached the point of diminishing returns.
Yeah, I did put out a tweet asking for questions from our readership and comments regarding the Justin Wilcox tenure and the decision and all of that. And so I'll go through some of those. There's some questions here that I'll pose to you guys too, and we can kind of briefly talk about them. But we'll start with the first one. Ty says, love J-Dub, could not have wanted a coach to win more. Hope he has lots of fishing and success in his future. I think we all agree. Grumpy Bear says, excited about the change. Hope Ron already has a short list and moves quickly. Huge opportunity for the program. Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yep. Sid, our dear friend Sid. Wowie. Weird to say I'm shocked. Thought it would come after the season, to be honest, but I think it's for the best. I do appreciate J-Dub's dedication, though.
Well said, Sid.
Next one from our friend Steve Gordo. It was time, but still a shock. Reminds me of when Maximilian I of Mexico was sentenced to death. Most were saddened by his execution, but also saw the necessity. Nothing but gratitude to Justin for his work and dedication. Nothing but good wishes. What a wild one.
Well then.
Next, our friend Gerardo. The fans invest in the program and J-Dub with renewed hope every year. Never relented in our love for the Bears, and it still feels like it's the right move at the right time. Or is it too late? Rivera should be able to hire anyone he wants, from the NFL to the NCAA. Deshaun Jackson coming home? ?
I mean,
It's 2 years too early. It's too early.
It's trending in the right direction, though.
Trending in the right direction, but it is too early. If he
Right.
wants kind of like a assistant position, maybe, but it is too early to take him. Any program that is trying to like the guys who are starting at the HBCU level right now, like Deshaun, Eddie George, Michael Vick, need a few years to kind of establish themselves as coaches outside of their name value. Like
Yep.
Dion is kind of struggling a little bit at Colorado now that he doesn't have Travis and his kids.
Yep.
And Deshaun and company do not come with the bonus of those kids coming with them as of right now. So, down the line, maybe, but not kind of a thing that I would be looking to right now.
Next from Anthony Baran. Went to the game yesterday and it was a disappointing loss to watch. I do not wish anyone lose their jobs, but I was thinking after the game, they have to fire Wilcox now. You can count on him to hover around 6-6. It was time for a change. We need to do better. We can do better. Next from Facepalms of Defeat. At some point, please do a deep dive on the Tosh thing. Maybe don't know what actually happened and why I want to. And I want to. Like, he wants to know.
That's like another 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
10 minutes.
No, it's just okay. You guys want to? Do you want to do this short?
We'll move on. Tyler Tomei, a couple questions. Number one, tier list hires based on names you've heard / want. I feel like I kind of talked about that. Number two, any chance Cal turns down the bowl game with roster / turnover? Never. You'll never turn down a bowl game unless the entire roster hits the transfer portal and is like out the door, which isn't going to happen anyways because we fired our head coach, so they have to stay until 10 days after the new head coach is hired. So
UCLA did it.
everyone stayed.
This new regulation just dropped middle of the year, I believe.
Yeah.
Like right after the UCLA.
Yep. Next one from Driscoll McDoza. What's the over-under on how many Oregon recruits Tosh poaches when he comes home? Could you imagine the reverse Tosh
Tommy Toffee. If you just bring the one, I'll take the one. Anything you can give me beyond the one is plus EV territory. But you just give me the one.
Long con uno reverse.
Andy, do you have one? You have an over-under on how many Oregon recruits Tosh poaches when he comes home?
No. No comment yet.
A Enchilada says, looks like reports are already out that Tosh is one of the top targets for us out of the gate. It's time to bring him home. I feel like that's the
Man, I'm glad that I'm glad that people are excited about Tosh. I love Tosh. And talking to Trevor Guyton, like, there was no better endorsement than talking to Trevor and hearing his perspective and when he was talking about Tosh, I felt like he was selling him as a head coaching candidate. I mean, the perfectionist who makes you better, that is, he has the recruiting chops. I'm glad. I mean, look, this stuff, I think I remember how upset I was with the whole Shaq Thompson thing and, the cup with money in it and the boats and all this. And like, the thing that pissed me off more, which Wilcox was a part of, was that it wasn't just that. It was in the future years when you would hear stuff coming from that Sarkeesian program and they would say stuff like to players like, why would anyone want to go to Cal? And all those guys were involved in that stuff. And I think that was like the harder thing for me. That felt like a betrayal. The other stuff, it's like, dude, you're just trying to do your job. But when you're like bad mouthing the actual program that gave you your first opportunity, I think that was like the thing that I really had a hard time with. He's like, time heals all wounds generally. I do think it would be an amazing reunion, and if he can recruit and just like pull a crystal ball. I don't need you to like win 10 or 12 games every single year. I just like need you to win the 8. Just go 8-4 in a generally weak ACC, and I will be thrilled.
The funniest part about that statement is like, I think like 6-7 years ago, that's what Andy just said. I don't need you to get me 8-9 wins every year. I just need you to get me 6 or 7 and get to a bowl game. And it's like, then the bar's raised, and which is valid. It's just absolutely valid. I think that standard should be raised because he set that standard.
If the Pac-12 was still existed and we had a nice new media deal and we were locked into that, and like, yeah, you could chill with 7 wins as Nam shakes his head vigorously. But like, you know, the world shifted and demanded more. I really don't think we're in the territory of what Dabo was saying, where like raised expectations and the issues with all of that. I really think this is just more of like being realistic with what's needed now in the world that we're living in, the world that like this version of college football. But
yeah.
Yes, there was that time because I saw, dude, I mean, don't even get me started. Utah's amazing. I would have killed to have Utah's program for the last 10 years.
Nam's like squinting. I can't tell if he wants to say something or if he's like...
No, because the other thing is you guys don't know, like, I'm on quiet hours in the apartment now. So I'm like both trying to be respectful to like the process and like not cut out early as a guest, but also like my wife is like, I'm on a yellow is the card system that I get to use in my house as,
Rob,
as a podcast person.
We're almost done. We're almost done.
Let's wrap.
I know.
Let's wrap.
My Allie, thanks you guys very much, and I love you. And obviously, we could do this all day, and we will do this again repeatedly, as we enter the new era of Cal football.
So a couple more left. All right, thoughts on Rolo? Think he has a shot at being the permanent head coach? And what does Wilcox's payout compared to other recent payouts?
So it was like yes. And Rob, if you want to discuss the financials, you can.
I think what Wilcox's payout right now, I think is $10 million for the buyout. I can't remember what Sonny's was. Do you remember what Sonny's was named?
No, man, come on.
Yeah, man,
like
10
it's just
10
like
years ago.
10 is like a lot, but also not a lot. Like we're not talking about Jimbo Fisher money here.
And it's not a lump sum.
It's the equivalent
payment.
of one Calamoni.
And it also will go down if he gets a future job.
Yeah,
like, that's not much.
Yeah, offset. Yep. Next one, Steven asks, how does this look for us financially moving forward? I think we're fine. I think I think if it's a bigger financial ask, if we made a head coaching change last year, because of the buyout, it would have been higher. But I think with the buyout just being around 10 mil, I think it's easily doable. Plus,
if Steven knows a guy that has $100 billion and wants to just give $1 billion to Cal football outright, we would use that though.
Oh yeah, we would in a heartbeat. We would all use it collectively. Like Nam said, we have win shares, so we might as well collect on those win shares.
Dude, if I won the lottery, like I would just immediated pay off the stadium debt. Like I wouldn't tell you, but there would be signs.
That's what Alex says all the time. I talked to him about that. I joked with him about it, about like, let's say Tosh is hired and it's at his, because he went and got the lottery tickets for, how much was it? Like a couple weeks ago? It was like 900 mil or something like that. And he was saying how there would be signs, and we're like,
signs.
yeah, like we're imagining the ballroom that we're in for like Tosh's, opening, press conference, and then the guy's literally there chiseling Alex's name into the wall of like the Alex Chang ballroom for football success.
Powered by the algorithm.
Powered by Calgoritham.
All right, last one. Brennan says, my patient broke with the SCSU loss. The big game saw the same problems we saw all season, and that's just not okay in year 9. More than ready for change. Where do you see the high points in Wilcox's tenure, and what were your moments that broke the glass floor under Wilcox's feet? I think we kind of talked about that already.
Yeah, 2019 season felt like a big high.
2018 was just fun.
Yeah, rolling into that 2020, rolling into 2020, having that CBS article come out talking about the takers, and
And
yeah,
then
that was definitely the peak for me.
yeah.
I do have my take for like the
Oh yeah.
floor.
Please, yeah.
Um, is obviously high points we all like talked about, I think, to start, but low point for me is no matter how you felt about it, like everybody was willing to give this one more shot at game day against Miami. So no matter how whatever it took to get there, like emotionally, if you gave up at 21, 22, 23, you didn't believe in this, everybody bought in for one more moment. And I walked out that set, like I'm not afraid to say that I cried, because I think I was heartbroken in a way of like, I'm really sorry that like this is not going to work. And I kept showing up, and I keep being a good fan, and I haven't missed games since then, and doing the best I can to keep people engaged in this. But, it makes me really emotional to be like, hey, we fought as a community, as a program, as a team, top on down, to get this kind of circumstance to change everything again, and you whiffed.
Yeah,
And
in that way,
in that
too.
way, in that moment, in the way that you did it, like, we were never going to make it back to that stage. And the fact that that stage appeared, whether it was through the work of an ESPN like socially engineered call, or memes being made, and whatever role that we all got to play in doing that and causing people to be excited about Cal football, like, we were never going to get back past that. And that was the tough reality. But the good thing is we have the technology. We can rebuild it. Like, we know what it kind of looks like.
That's it. That's the last one.
Damn, you let me be like the depressing closer to this.
That was so good. That,
That
was
was
so
good, though.
good.
It was a
Let's
great
wrap.
monologue.
Let's wrap. That was awesome.
Well,
Hey,
it's
thank
fitting
you,
because
guys.
that's what Andy and I were talking about when you were having technical difficulties, and then so you at least got the chance to share that, like, as the end. So, which is nice. But yeah, I mean, we're talking about the end of an era, the potential start of an era. We'll probably be back together once we get some more news on like a coaching hire or names, or maybe the first like news comes of someone declining an offer from us, like whatever, whatnot. And so we'll be back on the air probably a couple more times during this emergency season of Cal football coaching hires. So yeah, Andy, you want to close us out? You want me to close us out? Are we good?
You can close us out.
Alright.
Mine with Shade was.
Yeah.
I was like, you can find us where you're listening to us. Thanks so much. Go Bears on 3.
Well, Nams, thanks for the time, as usual, and but he'll be back with us to talk shortly. But in the meantime, if you're listening to us, you know where to find us. You can email us goldenbearcast@gmail.com. You can find and tweet at us at goldenbearcast. You can find all the written stuff over at rightforcalifornia.com. And one more game left, SMU, Saturday, 5 p.m., ESPN2. There might be some more Memorial Glade shenanigans, so stay on the lookout on social media. We don't have confirmations yet, so we can't like spoil everything. But for now, just be on the lookout for maybe some news. And that's it, Cal fans, for this eulogy on the Wilcox era and the potential outlook on the next one. And as always, go Bears.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.